All right, good morning, morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Afriforex Daily Analysis. Good to see lots of people joining us here on Zoom. For guys joining us on YouTube, welcome back to our channel. Hope you do like and subscribe as well. But we're really glad that you could join us. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So I'm here alongside Mitch. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will definitely be getting back to you. But remember, we always do prefer that you do ask your questions in the Q&A section so that at least can also end up looking at them, but towards the very end of the session. But remember, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list, compare what we had yesterday versus today. So you can see that there's been a couple of changes. A lot of things have moved to the buy side, especially in terms of the currency pairs. So we'll be looking at that. You can also see the indices have switched sides. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out, and also some sort of an illustration of what to expect in terms of the market possibly reacting off that area that calmed down. Can't see that in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. There was also this SNR where he had pointed out that maybe we could find some sort of a reaction. And you can see that at around 10 or thereabout, the market did actually end up pushing itself to the downside. But also you can see that during the US session, the market did push itself off this region right here. So you can see from around 4:30 or thereabout, of course, moving to the downside, of course, all through even into the Asian session, but unfortunately not really a currency pair that we'll be trying to see whether we can get some trading opportunities today. So the next one is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sales as well. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And you can see that at 10, which is during the London market open, price did actually come to the downside. But you can see that it just came shy of this region. Seems like there was some sort of an SNR somewhere within this area right here. And the market pushed itself off this region to the upside. But during the US session, you can see that the market came back in within this region. And of course, seems like the market is in some sort of a range. So also moving into today, unfortunately, because we could possibly be held within that range, not really a currency pair that we'll be trying to see whether we can get any trading opportunities on for today. So the next one is the US dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, also trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So you can clearly see the three areas that were mapped out, and also you can see some sort of an illustration that what maybe we're expecting in terms of the market to calm down. The market broke to the upside, came back in and held, but it seems that the sellers were not really interested with that price. It seems like they were interested with a price much higher, maybe somewhere within this region here. And you can see that the market came back in almost technically just shy of that area. But of course, remember, we always point out SNR is a region, so it's not really a price. I know the price we're watching out for is this one, but definitely it's still these same sellers who push the market to the downside. So this one technically did work out during the US session, as we've seen with most of the yen pairs, but unfortunately also a currency pair that we're not really going to be watching out for today. So the next one, which is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. You can see the three regions right there that had been pointed out, and also some illustrations of what to expect. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So we did want to see the market break to the downside of this area, or more or less maybe come back in within here. And you can see that the market was back in within here at exactly 3, back within that seller's region. And you can see that the sellers really did push the market down lower, but you definitely did need to manage your trade, within that area there, because there was no guarantee that price was going to break to the downside. But of course, if you did manage your trade within there and of course held on to it, then definitely you did end up reaping some good rewards out of that particular currency pair. So the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one also, yesterday trying to see whether we could get sales. You can clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. and also some sort of an illustration. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere here. So it was better to actually wait for price to break beneath this region to the downside. And you can't see that it broke to the downside, just like he had illustrated. And after that, you can see that the market did hold within here during the US session. The market technically pushed itself off that region to the downside to come down lower. Definitely some sort of an SNR. The market bounced off at the bottom right there. But unfortunately for us for today, not really a currency pair that we'll be trying to see whether we can get some opportunities today. The next one is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, so at around this time yesterday, price was somewhere within this region here. And you can see that he illustrated that we're expecting price to possibly come back in within this region, which it did. You can see that the buyers within here did actually push the market to the upside. And you can see there was even an attempt to break above this region to the upside, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get the market holding above that. But you can see that the market is in some sort of a range that's going on there. Possibly you could find that happening moving into today, especially considering the fact that the New Zealand dollar and the US dollar are pretty strong. But maybe you could find things maybe shifting, during the US session, especially considering the fact that we have the non-farm payroll today. So you could find maybe there could be some attempts to break above that range right there. But also what you could find is also some sort of spikes. So just make sure that if you're going to be watching out for that, just be ready for that. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities yesterday. The market did come down as we had anticipated. You can see the three areas that Mitch had pointed out. Unfortunately, the market couldn't come back in all the way to within there, but definitely seems that there was some sort of an SNR within this area right here. And I guess this price was good enough for the sellers. You can see that they really pushed the market to the downside from around 430 or thereabout. Fortunately, we couldn't get a proper pullback, in terms of looking for a proper entry within here. But consider the market broke beneath these buyers who had actually given issues the previous time. And of course, some sort of a hold. But I guess you did need to read that maybe on a smaller time frame. On the 15 minutes, in terms of the pullbacks, they were not very, very clear on that one. So the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. For this one, we're trying to also see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see that the strength on the CHF really came in, just like we've seen on the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, you can see the three regions that had been pointed out. In the morning, price was here. We did expect maybe to get some sort of a pullback coming in within this region here, or maybe if the buyers did actually show up, maybe till somewhere within here. But unfortunately, we couldn't get that. And you can see the strength on the CHF really pushed the euro to the downside. You can see that maybe the market did pull back in within this region right here. Maybe some sort of an SNR. Possibly did also need to read that on a smaller time frame, but definitely you can see the strength on the Swiss franc on that one. Not very clear in terms of the read and possibly wanting to see a proper pullback on the 15-minute. So the only way is possibly looking at it on a smaller time frame. But nonetheless, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for today. But if you did get any trades, especially on the CHFs, and you're hanging on to them, in as much as we're not really looking at them, especially the Australian dollar, the euro, and the US dollar against the Swiss franc. But if you did get any trades on them, you can possibly just end up holding on and see how much more further the market could possibly end up going. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs for review, we have the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to also see whether we could get sells. Can't see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out, and also some illustrations of possibly what to end up expecting. And you can see that the market did actually end up bouncing off this region. Fortunately, couldn't come back in all the way to within there. Definitely shows that there was a lot of strength, especially for the CHF. You can see that somewhere within this region, this price was good enough. At 3, price did actually end up attempting to break to the downside, pull back in, and after that, you can see that the market did go. The pullback only came back in somewhere within this region, and after that, you can see that the market has just been inching to the downside slowly. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So I guess we can end up looking at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting. So we'll start off with this one. This one is from Andre. So Andre, if you're here, shout out to you if you're watching from wherever it is that you are. We hope that you're well, but it's good to see that you're doing well on the chat. So this is the euro against the US dollar. So you can see that you got some 2 good selling opportunities, stop losses, more or less within this region. So I guess Possibly, maybe they could have possibly ended up being together, or maybe even down lower, especially considering the fact that the market had really moved to the downside. Hopefully, you did end up doing some money management within here. Definitely seems that some sort of a buyer's region or some buyers were waiting for you within that area. At least even if your stop losses were somewhere within here, that would be good. But nonetheless, in terms of the entries, this was really good. So shout out to you for that, Andre. And of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Christine Washera, if you're here or if you're watching from wherever. Hope you're well, but also good to see that you're doing well on the charts. So this is on gold. So I can see that you did get some good selling opportunity somewhere within here. If you got rid of the pullback, especially when the market was holding within here, then definitely these sellers did you justice, and you can see that the market did come down. And I can see that you're just targeting down within here, which is okay. Ideally, that seems like a problem area where you could possibly end up expecting some issues with the opposite party, but definitely the best way to manage is right there. So shout out to you for that, Christine Washera. So we also did get some screenshots from George Shege. If you're here, shout out to you if you're watching from wherever. Hope you're well, but also good to see that you're doing well on the charts. So this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So I can see that you got a selling opportunity within this region right here, and quite an aggressive sell, back trading like a big boy, unless you got it on a smaller time frame. But of course, if you got the sales there with your stop loss there, just taking these buyers out to the downside, can see that you did do some money management within this region, and I can see that you're targeting down within this area right here. So this one was not bad. So extremely aggressive, but good to see that you made it out alive. So shout out to you, George, for that particular trade. And also I can see that you did get a buying opportunity on oil. So I can see that you got a buy and you managed it like 50 million times, but good to see that at least the market was moving in your favor in terms of where you got the buy. This was good. Stop loss already above your point of entry. Don't really know where you're targeting, but nonetheless, at least if you've managed your trade, then ideally this is a risk-free trade. So shout out to you for that, George Shege, and of course, Christine and Andre. So remember, guys, if you want to send in your screenshots, feel free to do so. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details, I'm sure most of you do already have them, so feel free to send them in to us. Us guys would definitely be more than happy to see what you guys are up to on the chat, and also just to celebrate your wins. Remember, like we always say, we're not really asking for any money. I mean, we give you these setups, we're more than happy, to see people actually making it on the chat. So feel free to send in your screenshots. We can celebrate your wins with you. And also, if you're struggling on the charts, at least also make sure that you do send them in. At least we'll point out a couple of issues, and definitely that will take your trading game to the next level. So let's shift gears into matters today. So today, August the 2nd, you can see right there, a couple of things and a number of things have shifted sides. So we're going to be mixing and matching up the Great British Pound with everything on the buy side, then move on to the Canadian dollar pairs and mix and match up the Canadian dollar versus everything on the buy side, then move over to the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So aggressive up here, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. And you can see that in the morning when we're looking at the charts. In fact, let me just go back here. So this one we're looking for sales. So you can see in the morning when we're looking at the charts, the market was right here. So we did want to see if maybe the market broke to the upside. Maybe we could have expected the buyers to possibly push the market back in within this region. But you can see that at exactly 10, which is part of the times that, we always do keep on discussing. And I know that we sound like a broken record repeating the times, but it is what it is. So always watch out for 10, 3, and 4:30. And you can see that the market was within some sort of a seller's region. And this was at exactly 10. And you can see that the market did actually start to push to the downside. You can see that the market came back in, back within this region, tapped that area, came back into the upside, attempted to break above this region to the upside, unfortunately couldn't. And you can see that the sellers did really come in. Something similar with what we've seen, with the rest of the yen pairs when we were doing the review. So you can see that the buyers, or rather the sellers, did really come in, and the strength on the yen really did end up showing up. So for us, for today, these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for today. So just make sure that you do focus on these three regions. So we do have the semi-aggressive conservative somewhere within this area right here, and we do have the aggressive today. It's going to be somewhere within here. So right now, don't really look for your selling opportunities. Let's see if we can get the market possibly coming back in maybe somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. Of course, there's a minor SNR within here. Unless you're really good at reading, especially on the small time frame, you could possibly end up getting some selling opportunities coming down. The only tricky part is that, trying to get and make sure that you can get some proper risk to reward, as the market is coming back in within this region. But of course, just watch out for that. But generally, hopefully, we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within this area right here. Then you could possibly get some sales. Also, watch out for the region at the top right there. Could find that maybe the buyers might actually end up pushing all through the London session, and you could find that maybe during the US session, price could be back in within this region to possibly end up giving a proper selling opportunity. So do watch out for that. But remember the red SNR at the top, in case the market breaks above that and holds above that to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, I'm also trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see that the Great British Pound was really getting hammered on this one. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here, possibly expecting maybe to get some sort of a pullback just coming back in within this region. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that. And of course, you can see the other two areas that Mitch had pointed out in terms of where to expect, some selling opportunities in case the market did actually show up there. But unfortunately, we couldn't get that. And you can see that the market just continued to move to the downside. And you can see that even during the Asian session, the market is still continuing to move to the downside. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So let's see if we can get the pullbacks coming in. Clearly, it seems that the Great British Pound is really getting hammered. Looking at the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen, and also for this one, both of them are more or less within some sort of a support region. You can't see that the market has been coming down. But in as much as the Great British Pound does really seem extremely weak, we're still going to be giving these buyers the benefit of doubt. Let's see what they can do. They could easily end up shocking you by you hitting some selling opportunities here, then they show up out of nowhere. But we're more or less within a support region. Let's see if we can possibly get the market maybe attempting to come as close as possible within this region. It might not really end up getting there. I mean, looking at the Great British Pound weakness that's there, you could possibly find that maybe the market might even just come back in somewhere within this region. But at least if you can get the market at least giving some sort of a pullback, then that would be good. Hopefully, let's see if we can get the market there, or even all the way at the top. Possibly, that could also end up happening, especially considering the fact that you have the non-farm payroll today and quite a lot of fundamentals that are going to be coming out. Anything is possible. So just make sure that you also do keep your eyes on the lookout for the red SNR at the top. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. You can see how the Great British Pound has really been getting hammered. And you can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a pullback coming back in within there. The market came in. Possibly there was some sort of an SNR within here. And you can see that the market tapped within this region a number of times before the market did actually end up breaching to the downside or starting the move to the downside, breaking beneath this region to the downside, coming down. And you can see that even during the Asian session, the market is still continuing to move down. So for this one, we're also going to be looking for selling opportunities. So we're going to be helping the big boys in terms of dumping the Great British Pound, because it seems that that's exactly what they're doing. But remember, we do need those pullbacks. It's extremely important for us in terms of looking for the selling opportunities. So let's see what happens. You can see that the market is also bouncing off some area of support within here. Make sure that you also watch out for correlation, especially considering the fact that the Great British Pounds pairs, all of them are more or less within a support region. So you could find that they could possibly be doing the same thing. So just make sure that you watch out for those pullbacks coming in. If you see some of them turning, or if you see one of them turning, maybe just have a look at the rest of them. You possibly could end up getting, a handful of pips just by using correlation. So just make sure that you also have that at the back of your mind. So watch out for this one. The story is more or less the same as what we've discussed on the rest of the Great British Pound pairs. So, of course, based on correlation, it seems like we're analyzing the same chart over and over again. So the game plan is still the same. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So let's see what happens. This one seems like it's leading the pack in terms of the pullback. You can see that the other Great British Pound pairs have not yet quite started the pullback. So this one could be the leading pair. Let's see what happens. Right now, at least some buyers are coming in, which is good. Remember that these are the guys that we want to do business with. So the fact that the market is coming back in within here, let's see if we can get possibly the market slowing down, within this area right here. Because of course, if the buyers don't end up slowing down, then you could find the market going all the way till, the top region at the red SNR rather. So let's see if we can get the buyers possibly slowing down within here. If we do end up getting, an attempt of the buyers to break to the upside, maybe we can come back in. Possibly you could find some weeks, something of the sort, probes within that area. Then maybe you could end up attempting a selling opportunity. You could find that maybe by the time the market does this, and maybe by the time it's ready for the sell, it could possibly already be like 3 p.m. or thereabout, or 4:30. And you could find that maybe that's when the sell could happen. The sellers have come down aggressively. Let's see what the non-farm payroll does. Maybe you could find that the market could really breach this region to the downside quite aggressively. But remember, no matter what you do, especially today, make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters. I know that most times when the non-farm payroll is here, guys normally try to be cowboys, and you want to make sure that you end up buying your house and your car out of the non-farm payroll, but things always end up going south. Then you're going to have a long weekend when you're looking for money so that you can come back with the charts on Monday. Make sure that's not you. So just make sure that you do really stick to your risk parameters by all means. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one, this is also a new entrant on our watch list, but you can also see that the Great British Pound on this one is really getting hammered. So right now, this one is back within a support region. So either wait for the market to break beneath this region to the downside. If that happens, then at that point in time, then we could possibly try and see whether we could keep up with the sells, by looking for those conservative selling opportunities after we do get a confirmation that the market has actually broken and is actually holding below this region to the downside. So make sure that you're a bit patient for that. Of course, remember that the market can easily come back in within here. We're not too sure whether this is a range that might be forming within here. But so far, what we can see is that the market has definitely reacted off here a number of times off the top and the bottom. So maybe if it comes back in within here, then at that point in time, maybe I think we could actually end up saying that now we're in a range. So if you do get the sells there, just make sure that you focus on this region at the bottom right here. Make sure that you do some good money management there. But also remember the region at the top, also a possibility that price can also come back in within that region. So also be on the lookout for that. So last but not least, for the Great British Pound pairs, we do have the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, it's going to be the inverse of the rest of the Great British Pound pairs. For the guys who are new to trading, bear in mind on this one, the Great British Pound is to the right. On the others that we've all looked at, it's to the left. So it's the basis of what we're doing. So for this one, in order for us to actually sell the Great British Pound, we need to buy the euro, which is the base currency. But you can't see the weakness on the Great British Pound, and you can't see how it's getting hammered by the euro on this one. So this one is of course the inverse of the others. So the others are down, they're within areas of support. This one is at the top, it's within an area of resistance. So the game plan is the same, but inverse. So for this one, it's either the market breaks to the upside of this region right here, and we could possibly look for buys after we do get a nice proper breach to the upside, and possibly we do end up getting a nice pullback coming back in within here for us to look for the buying opportunities. But also give the sellers the benefit of doubt. The fact that we're back within here, of course the buyers have come up quite aggressively, but also you could find the market maybe pulling back in. Maybe it might not come back in all the way to within this region or within this region. But you also could find that maybe within minor SNR, depending on whether the Great British Pound can actually end up getting, some sort of strength to actually try and push. So just make sure that you also watch out for that. But in terms of looking for the buying opportunities right now, could be a bit risky, because even the main thing you need to ask yourself is, if you're going to be hitting a buy here, where are you going to be putting your stop loss within a safe region? And I mean, if you're going to be putting it down here and you're taking the buy when you're already at a problem area, then you don't end up leaving much room for yourself in terms of moving to the upside. So let's just wait and see what happens on this one. But also remember, you could find the market maybe even spiking down all the way till within here, especially considering the fact that we do have the non-farm payroll today. Anything is possible. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the Great British Pound pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the Canadian dollar pairs. I'm going to mix the card with all the currency pairs on the left, which are on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions that Mitch had mapped out, and also some illustrations of what we possibly end up expecting. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So we're expecting maybe to see the market tap within this seller's region, somewhere within there, come back in and hold. You can see that the market did actually come back in and hold within here, but it seems that these buyers who are sitting within here just couldn't have any of it. And you can see that even if the sellers did seem that they came in aggressively, they just couldn't end up moving and the market went north. So for this one, it seems that the market did actually end up making a move from around 4:30, looking at the times, just came shy of the area that Mitch had pointed out, but generally it's still these sellers within here. So maybe 2SNR could have been somewhere a bit lower, but nonetheless, you can see that the market did actually end up coming to the downside quite well. And you can see that the market is holding here. So for this one, the levels are still the same. So make sure that you do take note of these three areas right here. So in as much as the markets have moved, they've not really moved far and beyond, the areas that we're watching out for yesterday. So let's see if we can possibly get the market breaking beneath this region to the downside. And hopefully if it does, maybe even clearing these buyers to the downside. Because remember that if the market breaks and just holds within here, these buyers can't be taken out, then we're in for issues. But at least if we do break to the downside and the market pulls back in, especially after these buyers have been taken out, I think that sell will possibly end up giving you lesser issues. So watch out for that. But right now, considering the fact that we're holding within a support region, you could find that maybe the buyers could possibly even end up having an attempt, maybe pushing the market back in within here. There's also a minus NR within this area right here. And you can see that the buyers did push the market to the upside quite aggressively. And you can see that after that, the sellers seem to be non-committal to some extent, and we're more or less within some sort of a buyer's region. So you still could find the market either coming back in within here for another attempt, or maybe somewhere till within this region. But generally, right now, looking for the sells could be a bit of a risk. But ideally, in terms of the direction that we're going to be taking with that one, is to actually end up looking for sells. So just make sure that you do have that at the back of your mind as well. So the next one is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And you can see that during the London market open, there was an attempt of the buyers to come up. They did come up, just came shy of that area. The market came back in again. Possibly they needed to do some regrouping. And you can see that during the US session, that's when the big boys really did actually end up showing up. So what the big boys in London couldn't do, the big boys in the US actually did it. So for this one, was also still going to be looking for buying opportunities. Remember that by buying the New Zealand dollar, we're selling the Canadian dollar, which is what we're supposed to be doing. And of course, that goes out to the guys who are new. And in terms of looking for the buys, right now is not the best time to look for the buys. You can see that the buyers have come in within this region quite aggressively, looking at what happened yesterday, but still the sellers within this region were able to contain them. And even right now, we're still being contained within that region. So it's either the market breaks above this region to the upside, and then after that, we could look for the conservative buying opportunities. And of course, remembering to target and focus on maybe a region, higher up that could possibly give you issues. But right now, let's just give these sellers the benefit of doubt. They have reacted before. You can see yesterday during the US session, they held the buyers within here. And during the Asian session, they did actually push the market down lower. Just came shy of that area right there. But let's see what they can do. So if that happens, then just make sure that you focus and watch out for that region right there. And of course, remember the region at the bottom right there, the red SNR. In case the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, yesterday, we were watching out for selling opportunities. You can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out. And also an illustration of what to possibly end up expecting. Price was somewhere within here at a time like this yesterday. So we're not sure whether the buyers within here were going to react. But even if they did not, and the market broke to the downside, then we're waiting for that pullback to come in within this region for us to look for the selling opportunities. And you can see that that's exactly what happened. So you can see that the market did end up playing some sort of a ping pong game, within this region right here. But much later on, if you do look at the times, from around 4:30, that's when the big boys really showed up and pushed this market to the downside quite aggressively. And at that point in time, the Swiss franc did actually end up showing its strength, and the Canadian dollar was really hammered. So for this one for today, these are the three areas we're going to be watching out for. So right now, we're more or less bouncing off some sort of a support region. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens. You can see that the buyers have attempted to push the market to the upside. The market seems like it's in some sort of a small range within this area here, maybe more visible, especially on the 3-minute time frame. Here, it's not very defined, but at least you do have a clue that the market is bouncing, off this area right here. So you could find that maybe there could be some small sales happening coming down off this area. The problem with the Swiss franc pairs is that most of the time the pips normally end up being very small. So you see, if you're just targeting 12 pips and you want to get a decent risk to reward, that means that you're going to be having a stop loss of what? Maybe 3 pips or thereabout, which I don't really think the broker will let you have. So maybe you're better off maybe waiting to see if you can get the market coming back in within here. The risk to reward coming down could possibly end up being much, much better. And of course, if that doesn't happen, and hopefully we can get the market breaking beneath this region to the downside, then that would be good. But of course, since I know that there are many of you guys who are watching and some of you are cowboys, I mean, if you want to jump in on sales within here and possibly end up taking, like some sort of a gamble, trying to see if you can breach through this region to the downside, then you possibly could end up doing that. But you also could find that the sales could possibly end up happening off there. But I think the best way to time the sales, definitely somewhere within this region. The fact that the sellers have attempted to go lower than this off this area could possibly mean that this price is not good enough and they might need a better price. That much better price could possibly be somewhere within this range. So you could possibly wait and see what happens within there. But also remember, in case the market breaks to the downside, then I guess you could look for those conservative sells. But also remember the region at the top. You possibly also could find the market back in within that particular region. So the next one is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list, and we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So focus on these 3 areas right here. Let's see what happens. You can see how aggressively the buyers came up yesterday. The sellers within there somehow are retaliating right now, but let's see what happens. If we can get the market possibly pushing to the upside, these sellers, the way they're coming down, we're not too sure how far they could go. Maybe they're looking for an SNR, somewhere within this region here. You could find that if the market actually bounces off there and actually the buyers within this area actually push the market to the upside and we do get a hold within here, then you could possibly try and see whether you could get some buys. Make sure you manage that trade within this region here, even if hopefully, we should get the market maybe breaking above that region to the upside, especially if the non-farm payroll comes out and it's possibly strong. And the buyers do decide, and the big boys do decide to really push this one to the upside. We could easily find the market breaking above this region to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember that you could also end up having some spikes happening. You could find the market coming back in within here, maybe even spiking as low as possible as within this region. And that's why, when the non-farm payroll is coming out, you need to be very careful in terms of how you end up approaching the charts. I normally do end up advising that if you're going to be looking for trades, especially when the NFP is happening, either maybe have some pending orders, before the news actually comes out, or maybe wait and see what happens after. But in terms of looking for the trading opportunities, especially when the non-farm payroll is happening, you could end up having issues of slippage and deviation, which is you're trying to hit a buy, but where you hit the buy and where your buy starts are 2 different things. And, because the spreads do normally end up really widening, because the servers of the brokers are really trying to cope with all the volume of the trades and, that are coming in. So you find that there's a lot of deviation and slippage. And also when you're trying to put your stop loss, you could find that, it could actually end up refusing. So if you don't give yourself a panic attack, I think you're better off maybe looking and placing trades before, maybe waiting for, the non-farm payroll to unfold. And of course, once the dust does end up settling, then maybe after that, you could jump into the charts. So also have that at the back of your mind. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we're going to be watching out for buys. So we're going to be watching out for these 3 regions right here. Right now, the buyers are attempting to break this region to the upside. Let's see what these sellers have to say. So in case we do end up getting the market possibly coming back in, within this region right here in a choppy manner, maybe we're coming back into these buyers and the buyers do actually push the market to the upside and we get a hold, then I think at that point in time, we could possibly look for buyers to possibly challenge these sellers somewhere within this region right here. So just make sure that you focus on that. Watch out, considering the fact that we're in some sort of a range within this area right here. I mean, if the buyers do actually end up running out of steam within here and the sellers do push the market, back inside the range, and the market actually holds within here, then that means that the best buying area for you will be back down within this area, which is the bottom of the range. So make sure that you have that at the back of your mind. And of course, remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks beneath that to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs, we do have the euro against the Canadian dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list as well. So we will be watching out for buying opportunities. Let's see what happens. Right now, the market is back within there. You can't see how the market has sped up within that region. It's something similar with what we've seen with the rest of the card pairs. So there's some correlation happening on them. But let's just give these sellers the benefit of doubt. Hopefully, we could get the market coming back in within here. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. If that happens, then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities off this area. Of course, if the sellers do end up slowing down within there and these buyers do end up showing up, we see a sign that they're showing their faces again, then we could possibly end up looking for some buys there, maybe trying to attempt to break their previous record, which currently stands within here. They'll possibly definitely make a go for it, maybe even to take out these sellers within here, but just make sure that at least if we do end up breaking above here, do some money management, but watch out for the next area, which is just slightly above that. So at least if we do end up clearing that and we do get a good pullback within here, you could find the market maybe giving you another buying opportunity. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. Hope guys have taken note of what the game plan is in terms of the currency pairs. So we can move on to the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And of course, an illustration of what to expect. So you can see that the market came back in. This was during the London session. The market did actually end up attempting to go to the upside, came back in within here. You can see that once again at around 4:30 or there, but the market did actually end up attempting to come to the upside before all hell did actually end up breaking loose. And you can see that the sellers did really come in quite aggressively. And I mean, this is the reason why we always point out that you always need to make sure that you're trading with a stop loss and you're also sticking within your risk parameters. So you can't see that, I mean, if you took a buy here, things were going well, and the market came in within here, and then all of a sudden the market just shifted, to the downside quite aggressively. I think it was at around 5 or thereabouts. There were some news events that came out. So it was these PMIs, and you can see quite a number of news events that came out at 5, at around that time. So that's why it's always good to make sure that you always have your risk in check, because you can imagine even the people who don't trade without a stop loss, take a buy here, you're happy, things are going well. Next thing, things do end up turning around for the worse very, very fast. And you can see how fast the market came down off that region, even taking out these buyers to the downside. So for us, for today, for this one, we're going to be looking to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. You can see that the market has really come down quite aggressively. So we will be timing to see whether we can get those pullbacks coming in. Right now, the market has just breached this area to the downside. Kind of seems like it's holding to the downside of this area, although this breach and hold doesn't seem too convincing, especially considering the fact that you can see that the market had come down all the way to within this region here, and the buyers were able to push the market back in within here. So you could easily end up attempting sales within here, but you could easily end up getting stuck within this particular region right here. Maybe, at least if the market possibly breaks beneath this region to the downside, maybe you could look for some selling opportunities. I mean, if you don't really want to get stuck within here. But also, on the other hand, what you could do is, I mean, right now, since we have some minus and now within here, you don't know if it's going to react again. At least if the market comes back in, maybe to tap back in within here. I mean, maybe the price might not come back in within there, based on how aggressively the sellers have come in. The buyers are really caught off guard. They don't really know what to do. So at least if we end up getting that and the market comes back in and holds within here, at least if you do look for sales there to attempt and break this region to the downside, then I think that might be much, much better. Because remember, if the market starts to range within here, at least you want to get your sales as high up as possible, within the range, not really at the bottom, whereby if the market starts to fool around with you, it's fooling around with, either you are profit, you are break even or you're negative. You'd rather be in profit and also break even at the same time rather than be at a loss. So try and make sure that you get, your selling opportunities somewhere within this particular region right here. But also watch out and see. The pullback could also end up coming in quite deep and quite aggressive. Of course, a lot of people are definitely jumping in on selling opportunities right now. The big boys don't want anyone to be making money alongside them. So you could find that they will try and shake a couple of people off. So you could find that maybe when the pullback comes in, all the people who are chasing the sales right now, just because they're seeing some red bars on the charts and you don't really have a proper game plan of how to approach this, those ones are definitely going to be sleeping hungry today. So just make sure that you're not part of the gang. So moving into the next one, this is the Dow Jones or the US 30. So for this one yesterday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. And you can see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out and an illustration of what to expect. It did actually end up working out before all hell did end up breaking loose. You can see that the market came down. We're expecting maybe to get the market coming down, holding or coming back into the upside, holding within there. You can see that at exactly 3, the market was there. It came back in. You can see that it tapped that region. And you know, the markets are always very unforgiving, especially most of the time. You can imagine someone who got the buy here. If you're just thinking of what to do and you didn't manage your trade, next thing, all your profits turn into losses very, very fast. So it means that also when it comes to managing your trades, you need to be quick. You need to think fast. You know, the markets sometimes will not really give you much of a chance. So for this one, you can see that the sellers also came down quite aggressively. And you can see that the market seems to be bouncing off here. Let's see if we can either get the market breaking beneath this region to the downside. If that happens, then we could look for, you know, some more conservative selling opportunities, but hopefully we can get some sort of a pullback coming in. That would be much, much better. So we'll be keeping our eyes out to see what happens within here, but also within this region, especially considering the fact that this moves, in as much as they seem very big here, one thing you also need to have at the back of your mind is to know that these moves are also visible on the 1 hour time frame. And you can see that even 1 hour levels were broken. So you could find the market coming back in either within here or maybe somewhere within this region right here. And of course, you know, considering the fact that you have the non-farm payroll, you could find the market coming back in, you know, within this area. You could find some spikes happening. Same thing with this one. You can see that the fact that the move is also visible on the bigger time frame, that means that also levels on the bigger time frame possibly will need to be respected, and you could find the pullbacks coming in, you know, maybe within this region or somewhere within here. So just make sure that you're a bit careful in terms of your approach on those ones, but doesn't mean that you should be afraid in terms of looking for the trades. By all means, if you do get an opportunity, make sure that you do maximize on it. Remember, like we always point out, you miss 100% of the shots you don't end up taking. So always remember that principle as well. So moving on into the next one, this is silver. Now for silver yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. It's interesting to see that the indices did actually end up making a big move, especially to the downside, but silver and gold were more or less maintaining. So for this one, you can see the 3 areas that Mitch had pointed out. And of course, an illustration of what to expect. You can see that the market did actually end up pushing itself off this region to the upside, although this was during the London session, not really within the times that we always point out, but regardless, you can see what he illustrated, and that's exactly what happened. The market came back in within there. Definitely did need to manage your trade within there, but you can see that the sellers did really push to the downside. At one point, this one did actually break and actually hold to the downside, but you can see that the bars within here took out these sellers. So that's the reason why you're seeing the levels are looking like they are. So for this one, we're going to be looking for buys, but for as long as we're holding above here. And right now, the market has just breached this region to the upside. So we'll be waiting to see what happens within this area here. Of course, if we do get a slowdown of, you know, the sellers coming in within this region, and possibly we do see the buyers coming in, you know, within this area. In fact, price is more or less within the same area where it was yesterday. So it's more or less like a repeat of what happened within this area. Then at least we could possibly end up looking for those buying opportunities. Now we have this blue level here, and the reason why I put that there is because the sellers did react off that region. So in as much as we'll be waiting to see what happens, you can see that the market broke above this area to the upside aggressively. Maybe you could find the pullback coming in within this region. So that's the reason why we have that area there. And also just, you know, having at the back of your mind that for as long as we're holding above here, then the bars should be to look for buying opportunities. It's only when the market breaks beneath this region to the downside that we could actually look for the sells. But remember that if you get the buys here, just make sure that you watch out for this region. So you can't just target, you know, for the moon or for the stars and just ignore that region there. It could easily end up reacting on you again. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, if you end up looking at the 1 hour time frame, you actually end up getting more context, especially for the guys who've done the one-on-one, and also to some extent the guys who also are doing the AMP. I'm sure you can definitely see what's going on within here, but generally you can see that the buyers still do end up more or less holding the market off within here. You know, on the bigger time frame, you can see how aggressively they push the market. but it doesn't mean that it's a guarantee, that they're going to be taking out these sellers right there. Right now you could find that this could end up becoming a serious battlefield, and you could find that the market could really end up, going sideways because the buyers and the sellers are going to be fighting right there. But of course, considering the fact that we have the non-farm payroll today, maybe it could end up being some sort of a tiebreaker. So we'll just have to wait and see. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out, and some illustrations of what to expect. You can see that in the morning, when we're looking at the charts at a time like this, at around 9:10, price was here. We did expect either the market to break above that region to the upside or possibly come back in within this area. That's exactly what the market did. So you can see it came down, did actually end up bouncing off this region right here, came to the upside, held within there, and you can see that the market took off more or less from just before, the US session opened from around 2 p.m. or thereabout, and you can see that the market came up. Definitely did need to manage your trade there. You can see that at 4:30, price was at a seller's region, somewhere within there, came back in within this region, and you can see that once again, the market did end up giving another buying opportunity, although much later, and also during the Asian session. So for this one, we're still going to be looking for buys. Remember that when it comes to the indices and the commodities, for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, we should be looking for buys. And if the market does end up breaking the red SNR to the downside and actually hold below it, then that's when we start looking for the sells. So for this one, the market has broken to the upside. Let's wait and see if we can either get the market coming back within here. It did seem like it did actually end up breaking to some extent and actually holding within here, but we're actually waiting to see more of, maybe an attempt to break to the downside, and we're looking at this one with the team early in the morning, but you can see that the market has continued to rally up, but it's okay. Ideally, you shouldn't be chasing. The first thing you need to figure out is where are we, before you take any action. So let's even just go to the 4-hour time frame, and you can see that we are so close within this sort of sellers region right here. So you can imagine all the guys who are jumping in on blind buys right now, just because you're seeing some green bars on your charts, and you're thinking it's a good time for you to hit a buy, and you're not quite aware of your surrounding. You can see that the sellers are somewhere within there. So that means we can put the blue line there. Let's see if either we can get the market breaking above this region to the upside. Maybe we could look for some more buying opportunities. And maybe at that point in time, if that happens, maybe even the red SNR could actually come in here. And of course, one of these yellow lines could actually go up there. But right now, considering the fact that we're within a seller's region, we're not too sure how the sellers within that area could react. So the best thing to do is to actually wait and hopefully just still keep our eyes on somewhere within this area right here, or somewhere as close as possible within there. At least even if the market doesn't come in all the way till within here, you could find that it could actually end up coming in somewhere as close as possible within this area. And you could find that some proper buying opportunities could easily happen, off that region to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially when the non-farm payroll comes out, because you also could find that if the market just hangs around here, you could find that maybe during the NFP, either one of two things, the sellers could really react and you could find the market backing within this region. It's very possible. Or you could find that maybe the buyers at that point in time could really muscle their strength and really push and take out those sellers within that particular region. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But of course, if price is back in within this region at around 3, much better off in terms of looking for your buying opportunities. And you could find that maybe during the non-farm payroll could easily end up taking out, those sellers to the upside quite well. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of all the things that we're going to be watching out for today. So I guess we can end up looking at the Q&A real quick. So I see Alan Ronald there. Always good to see you here with your usual vote of thanks. Karibu sana, Alan. And I also see Patricia Mwangi there. Good to see you, Patricia, as well. You're saying, hi, John, kindly display Eurocard chart again. So Eurocard, for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. And you can see the 3 areas right there. You can see that the market is reacting off this seller's region. Like I pointed out, it's not really a good time for you to look for your buys, especially in price was then. You can see that the sellers are reacting. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in within here. We at least end up getting the market back in within here, and we actually get an attempt, maybe we're tapping those bars right there. We get a hold to the upside of this region. At that point in time, you could look for your buying opportunities. So I hope that sorts you out, Patricia. So I guess that's pretty much it. Of course, I'll remind you guys again, today is that day. You can see that we do have the non-farm payroll that's going to be coming out at around 3:30 and a bunch of other news events that do end up coming alongside it. So that tells you that there could be mayhem at that time. So just make sure that you do watch out, for your risk, and also just make sure that you do watch out, especially if you're going to be trading the USDs. I know that the non-farm payroll, the effects normally cut across more or less everything, but of course, the ones that do end up being most affected, anything that's pegged on the USD, just make sure that you really, really do end up watching out for that. And of course, remembering the indices and the commodities as well. There's going to be some CHF news. There's one news event that just came out right now. Seems that it's come out negative if you compare the number right now and what was there previously. But in terms of how the CHFs are showing strength, I don't really think that is really going to be doing much. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens with the PMIs that are going to be coming out at 10:30. So in case of any change, we'll definitely let you know on the Telegram channel. So just make sure that you're also in the Telegram channel. But I think that's pretty much it from me. So I want to thank guys so much for making the time to be here with us. And of course, not just today, the whole week. Hope that you guys have gained a lot, not only in terms of the charts, but also in terms of your knowledge base. But we're really happy that you guys always make the time to be here with us. Remember, the AMP program is still running, especially the July one. The August one, we're still planning and still getting and taking guys on board, and also the September one as well. So remember, if you do want to sign up, make sure that you also do end up doing that. You can go to our site. If you go to www.afriforex.com on the homepage, definitely you will find that information. But also if you go to the Academy section, but there's also a link that you can find on our social media, especially on Instagram, that has all that information, and you can still end up finding that. So feel free to do that, as well as the masterclass. And of course, for guys who are new, the UBC as well. For the guys who are watching us on the social media handles, I think there should be a description, something on the video description that should actually end up pointing you towards that effect. So just make sure that you also end up looking out for that. But with that, happy trading, guys, and bye for now. I guess we'll see you on Monday. Be responsible on the charts, so at least you end up also having a good weekend. But I guess we'll see you on Monday. So with that, happy trading, and bye for now. May the pips be with you, and God bless.